So he explained in yesterday's Eis, Yisrael was acknowledging that the Eibishter is Gadol Havaya Mikol Elikim, than all the Avodah Zaras, which seems strange. What's the praise for the Eibishter that he's superior to Avodah Zaras? And the Rebbe explained that Avodah Zara, based on what the Rambam says about the root of Avodah Zara, that the meaning of Avodah Zara is anything that's an intermediary to think that it's detached, that it's separate from the Eibishter. So really Avodah Zara applies even to the spheres of Atzilus and the Malachim, looking at them as something separate from the Eibishter, not recognizing Havaya Hu Elikim, that everything in essence is one with Hashem. That's a very, very subtle form of Avodah Zara. So Yisrael's acknowledgement was really that Gadol Havaya Mikol Elikim, that even he understood spheres of Atzilus, he understood the highest spiritual levels, and beyond, and he recognized that despite all his understanding in the spiritual levels and the spheres and Atzilus, that Gadol Havaya, that the etzem, the essence of the Eibishter, is above that. This is what the Rebbe said is Yisrael was Kayin Midyan. Midyan means separation. Originally, he understood the levels of Atzilus, the levels of godliness, even the levels of the higher Elames, the way they're an entity that's separate, that's detached, that's independent from the Eibishter. And then he came to understand Gadol Havaya Mikol Elikim, that in essence they're all one with Atzmus. So now the Rebbe is going to tie everything together. Pikol now yesh leimar. Dezesha hayisrei nasa b'teira. So let's just give a recap. The Maamar was saying how Basi Lagani is the Mishkan. With building the Mishkan, Elikos came down into the world. So the first step was, why the Mishkan? Why not Matan Torah? And the Rebbe answered, because Basi Lagani means that the Shechina came into the world, through the Tachtenim, through people. And that happened in the Mishkan. Matan Torah was something that came through the Eibishter. That's not the true drawing down of Shechina into the world. But the Rebbe said everything comes through Matan Torah in a bekayach way, in a potential way, in a subtle way. Matan Torah contained this advantage, this element of coming down of Avodas HaTachtim, of it being part and parcel with the world. Why? Because Matan Torah contained the Hidas Yisrei, the declaration of Yisrei Gadol Havaya Mikol Elikim. And therefore Matan Torah has Bekayach, the Maila, the advantage of being brought down through the Tachtenim. And this, said the Rebbe, gave a Maila, it made better the whole process of Matan Torah. And we'll go back to that, the details of how it made it better. But he said there's a Yisrei, there's a Maila in Matan Torah, through that Matan Torah was brought about from the acknowledgement, the declaration of Yisrei. It says, and Yisrei came to this realization through knowing Avodah Zaras. This was who mebneisha heidas Yisrei ata yadaiti ki gadol havaya mikol elikim hi hayidia bahaflas ha'atzmus shehu l'mayla me'agiluyim gadol havaya mikol elikim. What was the acknowledgement, this declaration of Yisrei, of recognizing that atzmus, the essence of the Eibishter, surpasses everything. It's greater than any levels of Giluyim, any levels of Elikos that could be understood, that could be grasped, that could be explained. That's not Atzmus. The essence of the Eibishter is beyond that. But what enabled him to really appreciate that? The fact that he really understood what are all these levels. He understood Giluyim. He knew what we call, the way the Rebbe explained, was Mechadish in this Maamar, what we say, the subtle meaning of Kol Avodah Zaras, all the independent entities. He knew what Atzilus is. He knew what the godly levels are, what the spiritual levels are.
Did he have Ruach HaKodesh?
No, he knew it with a...
How would he know it?
How do we know it?
From our Rebbe's time.
From learning Chassidus. He was taught. He came to with his understanding. It says it's brought down in Chassidus that the Rambam, with his intellectual prowess, is that the word? With his listen, the Rambam with his intellect, reached almost to the level of Nevuah, prophecy, which is greater than Ruach HaKodesh. Avodah Zarah, said the Rebbe, means he understood the most profound, the deepest understandings, the deepest intellects of every single level of Elikos. That's what he understood the Avodah Zarah at its roots. The original Avodah Zarah was levels of understanding, but not understanding it at its purity.
Why didn't he come to that before he met Rosh Rabbeinu?
Before he met Moshe Rabbeinu, he didn't come to because of that, he didn't come. The deeper you understand the levels of Elikos, the harder it is to understand how, despite how lofty and how high and how supernal they are, they're nevertheless something that is one with Hashem. When you see something lowly and worldly, if all we know about is physical things, material things, is pizza and French fries, so then it's easy for us to understand that's not everything. There's godliness that's higher than that. But when what someone understands and what Yisrael had a tremendous deep understanding, and he understood Atzilus, Chesed Atzilus, to recognize that that's just a level, that's just Giluyim, that's just the manifestations, and that the essence of Hashem is beyond that, that's a much greater, that takes a much deeper understanding. For that he had to meet Moshe Rabbeinu and understand that his level of understanding is Avodah Zarah, still a subtle separation, a subtle independent entity, and it's not the ultimate oneness of Hashem.
So Moshe Rabbeinu sort of gave him the extra, go beyond what he
Yeah, but that was a chiddush. It was because of his great understanding that this was an accomplishment, this was an achievement. There was a chassid, his name was Zalman Moshe HaYitzchaki, who was a great chassid, a very, very chassidish and yid, full of feeling, very colorful in a sense. And he was once farbrengen with another chassid, whose name was Rabbi Moshe Gerari. Rabbi Moshe Gerari was a brilliant, profound understander of Chassidus, a maskil. And during the farbrengen, so Rabbi Zalman Moshe turned to Rabbi Moshe Gerari, and he was a very aggressive chassid also. He said to him, "I want you to tell me, you're such a deep understander of Chassidus. Says, what is Atzmus? You know what Atzmus is? Explain me Atzmus. You've learned so much Chassidus." He tried to get out of it, putting him in a spot, uncomfortable situation. He said, "No," cornered him. "I want you to tell me, answer me, tell me what's the Atzmus." So finally he started to give some, Atzmus is whatever you can't explain it. So he slapped him in the face. He said, "As soon as you say Atzmus is, that's not Atzmus, you're on the wrong track." But there's a big difference. We could say that, we could all say Atzmus, you can't say Atzmus is. But when you understand, and you understand a lot, we understand the tzilus, we understand the profundities, and then we come and realize, but that's still not what Atzmus is. That Atzmus is beyond that. That's really understanding and appreciating the hafla, the aloofness, the superiority of Atzmus. This was Yisrael. This is what the Rebbe explains. Yisrael understood Kol Avodah Zarah Sheba'olam. He understood the loftiest levels of the worlds, of Atzilus, of the Spheres and the Malachim. And because of that, his appreciation and his acknowledgement and his declaration that Gadol Havai Mikol Elokim, that the essence of Hashem is beyond all that, this was the prerequisite, sort of the stepping stone to Matan Torah. Now he takes, and this increased the Matan Torah. This brought, we said earlier in the Maamar, we'll come back to that Matan Torah should be on a higher level, so to speak. That was a tremendous chiddush in this Maamar. The Rebbe says, since Yisrael's reaching, his arriving at this appreciation, at this knowledge, at this recognition of the greatness of Atzmus, of the essence of the Eibishter, Hoisa was al yidei hayidia v'hakara shahoisa loy lifneza, was as a direct result of his appreciation, of his prior understanding, b'chol hadargis de giluyim shenetzlu. It was because he really knew and understood the levels of elikos, the levels of godliness, the giluyim, those aspects of godliness that can be understood and can be rationalized. It was only because he understood them that his declaration, that his understanding, his appreciation of what Atzmus stands for was really proper, was really perfect. Lachein, so this accomplishes something else. Hayisrein b'teira, hamshachas ha'atzmus, hu be'efen sheshayich legiluyim, the increase, what he added and changed in Matan Torah was something that didn't just make, so to speak, that the giving the Matan Torah was on a higher level, but the higher level of Matan Torah was something that permeates the Giluyim, the aspects of Torah that we could appreciate, like we'll explain in a minute. But first he says what it is. He says, Hanasinas Keach l'chol echad miYisrael. The accomplishment of Yisrael, he said earlier in the Maamar, is the empowerment for everyone who learns Torah, la'afashala, to delve deeper into the Torah. Legale says, chelkai b'Torah, to reveal and understand his personal portion, it was personal part of Torah. Kipsak Admor Hazaken, like the Alter Rebbe says in Hilchos Talmud Torah and Halacha, shekol echad tzarich lahasik b'yediyas haTorah. La'afashala, the Zayar says that when you learn Torah, it has to be la'afashala, to broaden it. To be, everyone has to be mechadish. You can't just learn the Torah the way it is. Everyone has to, in his own way, to make a chiddush, to add to it. Like the Alter Rebbe says, shekol echad tzarich lahasik b'yediyas haTorah, or lechadish, but everyone has to grasp and be mechadish and increase and add and come up with his new novel chidushim in Torah, hein b'pshat, vein b'remez, hein b'drush, vein b'seid, in every area of Torah. So let's just go over what the Rebbe said over here. This is the tying together all the parts of the Maamar. One of the things the Rebbe said in the Maamar, brought the pasuk that Yisrael says, "V'ra'isi sheyesh Yisrael l'chachma min hasichlos ki Yisrael ha'ir min ha'cheshach." That Yisrael said that there's chachma that's made out of transforming foreign ideas to chachma satera, makes the chachma satera greater, just like air that comes from transforming darkness into light is greater than regular light. The Rebbe said in the Maamar, what's over here the chiddush? If I understand that light is better when you transform darkness to light, so obviously the same should apply with light and darkness in the realm of intellect, transforming foreign ideas to chachmas hatera. What's the ra'isi ani? Why did this take the wisdom of Shlomo HaMelech? And the basic idea, that thread of the Maamar, the Rebbe said there's a difference between mitzvahs, between avodas Adam, between in general speaking about the advantage of transforming darkness to light when you're in an area that has to do with darkness. When we're talking about our neshamas that's enclosed in a body, when we talk about mitzvahs that are part and parcel of the physical world, so there it's understood that there's an advantage in anything that comes from transforming darkness to light, because it's a light that came down and became related with the darkness. But Matan Torah, the Chachmas HaTorah is something that's given by the Eibishter. It never acquired this connection with Gashmias. Seemingly Torah is coming from above. We don't have a part in it. It's being given to us. Why should Torah have that characteristic that it should be affected in any way, that it should be better because it came from the transformation of darkness in the realm of Chachma, which is foreign ideas? He says that's why it took Shlomo HaMelech, V'ra'isi ani, to tell us this, to teach us this, Shlomo HaMelech to appreciate this, that this is true even with regards to Chachma. That Chachma Satera is increased, is made better when it comes from transforming the darkness in the world of intellect, foreign ideas, to Chachma Satera. Like the Rebbe explained in the Maamar, through learning foreign ideas and understanding Torah better, and they become a part of Torah. The Rebbe said, but how does this happen? How does it make sense? The truth is, it really doesn't make sense. Matan Torah is given from above. Why, in fact, should it be affected, influenced in any way by the fact that something else was transformed? It's something that's above us. Why should our actions, why should the darkness have bearing on it? So the Maamar said, this Maamar, the reason why Torah has that characteristic, this was the accomplishment of Yisrael. Because Matan Torah was brought about, was initialized by Yisrael saying, Ati adaiti ki gadol havai mikol elokim, so that, so to speak, changed the whole nature of Matan Torah. Matan Torah should have been something that's not reachable, and therefore not influenced, and not affected by people, by tachtenim, by cheshach, by darkness in the realm of Chachma. But because Matan Torah wasn't completely, so to speak, the initiation of Hashem, but it was partly brought about by an understanding and by a declaration of Yisrael appreciating the pureness of the Eibishter from his understanding of Avodah Zarah, of darkness. So therefore Matan Torah has some, so to speak, relationship with darkness, that the transforming of darkness, that the Avodah of people who are down here have bearing on it. Now, this that our Avodah has bearing on Matan Torah is there in two ways that was spoken about. One way is this, that when someone understands Chachmas Chitzeni, secular Chachma, and he uses that to understand Torah better, the Torah becomes in a higher level because the darkness in Chachma is transformed to Torah. Like in the Rambam, we brought the example, uses calculations that came from Greek philosophy and they become a part of Torah. The Rebbe brought it from. The other way is that the mere fact that a person has the ability to learn Torah and be mechadish in Torah, Torah was given to us from Hashem, so it's not ours. So how can we influence it? How does the chidushim that a person make from his working and his toiling in Torah become a part of Torah, that they, so to speak, affect the Torah? They change it, they make the Torah itself become bigger. It's something that was given to us to Hashem. How do we change its nature? This is also as a result of Yisrei saying, Ati Adaiti Ki Gadol Havayim Mikol Elokim, that changed the whole characteristic, the whole nature of Torah, and made Torah something that's reachable, that's affected by our Aveda. Says, even though on the one hand, when a person is Machadish in Torah, it has its source in the Torah. It's not a real Chiddush, but it's somewhat of a Chiddush, and this Chiddush was achieved through Yisrei. Rabbi said, how did Yisrei's declaration, his acknowledgement, what was the nature of the change? How did that change the characteristics of Torah? So because of that, Yisrei brought about this process of Matan Torah, this sequence that it was ushered from Yisrei saying Ati Adaiti. This caused that Torah wasn't just something spiritual, it wasn't just something that was given from the Eibishter, but Torah is coming from the essence, from Atzmus, like we said. And because it's coming from Atzmus, Atzmus means, that's like that Chassid said, Atzmus says, it transcends any differences between higher and lower. That we say, if it's given from above, then it's not affected by what we do, then it's not affected by darkness, it has no relationship with darkness. That's as long as we don't bring Atzmus into the picture. But as soon as Matan Torah is a manifestation of Atzmus, so Atzmus doesn't go by any rules. So therefore it changes the whole nature, and that's the reason why Torah is in a way that our Avodah has an effect in these two ways, that transforming secular seichel changes and elevates the Torah, so to speak, and that our Avodah, our toiling, could bring chidushim that changes and broadens and expands the Torah. So now here the Rebbe took that a step further. So what happened through Yisrei is that the Torah contains, so to speak, Atzmus, and therefore it transcends the separation between Elyenim and Tachtenim, and Cheshach, and people could have an influence and effect on the Torah. That's Atzmus, that's the way, the presence, so to speak, of Atzmus in the Torah. Atzmus is higher than anything. And yet that presence... What? Every person is connected with Atzmus. That's why the presence of Atzmus is reflected in the fact that a person can have an influence on Torah, because we're all part of that Etzem. Etzem, by definition, is higher than the highest level of what we can understand in Torah. It's Atzem, you can't understand it. And yet, what is the way that we see the presence of Atzmus in Torah? In the Giluyim, not in the essence of the Torah, it's in the way that we appreciate Torah. It's in the Giluyim, it's in the way that we understand Torah. And that's what the Rebbe was quoting over here. That's what this whole paragraph is bringing out. Chiddush in Torah means that a person learns Torah with his understanding. And we appreciate it and we grasp something and we come and make a novel idea and we understand that idea. That's our hasaga, that's our grasp in Torah. So what was added in Torah through Yisrei, the presence, so to speak, of Atzmus, that enables that we should affect Torah, is an effect that doesn't remain an inyan atzmi and an essential part of Torah, but it's an effect that comes down and is connected with our giluyim, with our senses, with our appreciation. It's that we reach a grasp of these chidushim. The chidushim are a result of what we understand. Why is that? Because the reason why Torah got this new element, the presence, so to speak, of Atzmos and Torah, was because Yisrael's appreciation of Hashem came not just because he made a declaration, so therefore Matan Torah was preceded in some way by Avedas Adam, but his declaration, his understanding and appreciation for the Hafloas Ha'atzmos, for the aloofness of the Etzem of the Eibishter, came as a direct result of him knowing every Avodah Zarah, which we explained means that he understood all the levels of Giluyim, every level of godliness, of Atzilus, of Spheres, of Malachim, that it's possible to have a grasp in. Every level of, every graspable and understandable level of Elikos was understood by him. And through his understanding and appreciation of Giluyim, through that he went the next step and he really, truly declared and appreciated Haflas Atzmos Gadol Havaya Mikol Elokim. So therefore, the appreciation of the greatness of Atzmos by him was directly in proportion and a direct result and directly connected with his appreciation and understanding of the Giluyim. And therefore, the effect of Matan Torah wasn't just that because of that Matan Torah has the presence of Atzmos, but the presence of Atzmos in Matan Torah is also in a way that it's connected with the Giluyim of the person. The presence of the Atzmos is that those chidushim that everyone has the ability to affect, to influence Torah, are chidushim that tie with his Giluyim. It becomes something that he understands and he grasps and becomes part of his intellect. That was the point of this ice, but it has to have all the building blocks of the Maamar has to come together in this ice. V'hi ratzin, says the Rebbe, shekein tia lanu, shekol echad yasa kanal, everyone should actually carry this out, the bottom line, the practical messages, that since Torah has this advantage, so we have to actually learn Torah with our understanding until we're mechadish, until we actually have an influence and an impact on the Torah by making chidushim. V'nizke lireis begoli, we should be able to see eich shekol Yisrael heim mamleches koyanim v'goy kodesh, that all Yidden are a kingdom of koyanim and a holy nation, like it says in next week's parsha. That the Eibishter said before Matan Torah, Shekol echad mi Yisrael yeh b'maimudu matzev shel sar kipshutei. Everyone will be like a kohen, like a high minister, in a literal sense. So the Rebbe says, how do we reach that if right now some people are still far from that, some people are still struggling? He says, also that comes through our approach to learning Torah. Someone who sees that so far I'm not yet in a state of mamleches koyanim v'gei kodesh. I didn't reach tremendous success, but through deciding that in whatever situation I'm in now, even if I'm in a state of poverty, but I commit myself to learning Torah. So through learning Torah and a matzev in a state of oini, harei kavtachas Chazal, so Chazal promises us kol hamekayim es haTorah mei oini seifei lekayma meisha, that if we fulfill Torah even in a state of poverty, of need, so then we're promised we'll have the ability to fulfill Torah out of wealth. So therefore everyone has a direct path to becoming mamlachas koyanim v'gei kodesh, because even if we're short of something now, but through committing to Torah and a matzav of Eini, we're promised wealth. As soon as the Rebbe said, you don't even have to fulfill the Torah. You have to make the resolution by deciding that we're going to fulfill Torah even in poverty, even in want and need. Immediately following that resolution, because like the Rebbe says in the Ara, Machshava Teva, Kadosh Baruch Hu Mitzaref L'Maisa, who loimdo mekayma me'esha, we're actually given the ability, that's the promise, that we'll be able to learn Torah out of wealth, me'esha amiti, from true wealth, begashmis uberuchnis gam yachad, u'meisev b'limudat Torah, b'nigla v'chsidus, and through that we're able to add. Once we have the Eisha, Begashmis, Beruchnias, then everyone is able to increase in learning both Nigla and Chsidis, V'limud Mevil de Maisa, and a learning that brings to Maisa Kiyama Mitzvahs Behider, or me bringt Arab Mashiach Tzidkenu. Through that we bring down Mashiach, Lamata Me'asar Tvachim B'karev Mamish, V'yivne Beis HaMikdash B'mkaimai, V'yikabit Nidche Yisrael, V'hoisal Avaya Hamlucha, Begula Hamitis V'ashlema, Yidei Mashiach Tzidkenu B'mheira B'yameinu Mamash. We have 2 minutes. I'll tell you a quick story. So this was, Maamar was a completely different angle of the Basi Legani, of what was unique about the Mishkan and how all that is contained in Matan Torah. But the main theme of the Basi Legani, the original Basi Legani Maamar of the Frierdiker Rebbe, it's tomorrow's Shevat, and of the subsequent Maamorim of the Rebbe, especially Tafshin Yud Aleph, the first Basi Legani of the Rebbe, is about how the Mishkan contains the element of Shtuste Kedusha, of transforming Shtuste L'Umazeh to Shtuste Kedusha. And it's such an important point that the Rebbe, in a unusual thing, tells in the Maamar stories of each of the Rabbeim to illustrate what Shtuste Kedusha is. Now, Shtuste Kedusha is something that doesn't really make sense. Even Seichel of the Nefesh Elokis could justify not acting like this, and nevertheless, the Shtuste Kedusha, there's a certain commitment that defies reason. So the Rebbe tells stories of the other Rabbeim, doesn't say a story of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and also there's no story there of the Rebbe about Shtuste Kedusha. So here's a story about the Rebbe of Shtuste Kedusha for Yud for the Maamar. When the Rebbe was in Paris, so there was a bacher by the name of Heber who went around with the Rebbe and would take care of the Rebbe, certain things. And the Rebbe would then give a shir, I think it was once a week, in a shul over there to some Balabatim in Gemara. One week there was terrible weather, it was pouring rain and it was cold and the Bacher says to the Rebbe, today you don't have to go give the shir, no one's going to come, no one's going out in this weather. So it's no point in you going through all the effort to go there. The Rebbe said to him, could be that one person will come to the shir. The person's going to come, he wants to learn Torah. If I'm not there, no one's going to give him a shir. So the Bacher thought to himself, it's not a strong argument. He said, you want to go? You could go, but I'm not going in this weather because maybe one person. Fine. The Rebbe went, and then this Bacher thought to himself, I didn't do well. I was wrong. I let him go by himself. This is before the Nesias, obviously, but still, he said, so he decided that he's going now. And he went, and he came to the shul, and he sees, sure enough, there was one person there, and the Rebbe was giving a shir to that one person, just like he said. After the shir, the Rebbe says to this Bacher, you should know that for a long time I had a question on a Teisvus in Yevamis that I couldn't resolve. After this shir, I suddenly got the answer, which implies that the Rebbe, was saying about himself, he went out of his comfort zone, he did something that he could have easily justified not doing, and v'haraya, because that had an effect on him and his level of understanding.